There you go. You're on. You're live.
Hello,
Hello.
everyone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ron, and I'm here with Dr. Julie Beaulac. Did I say that right?
Pretty close. Beaulac.
Okay, Beaulac. And so we're going to do this little presentation. It's finding the resilient leader in you, maximize fun and meaning in your life. Yay.
Who doesn't want to do that?
So I would think that many of you would know and know about this matrix process, right? So I will go through it a little bit, and we'll through it very kind of in a brief way. So the matrix, the horizontal line, that's what I like to talk about first. It's the demarcation line, or the line that sets aside from what's happening in the world that you can see with your five senses: your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth, and your taste and touch, from what's going on the inside world. And so what we're going to do with this matrix, and to have fun, what we always do is we notice the difference between what's going on in the world, in the present world, and what's going on inside us. So for example, we can start on the bottom right-hand quadrant and say, who's important to you? And if I were to ask you that question, you say, for example, your mother might be someone who's important to you.
Or my dog.
Or your dog, right. So Julie, sometimes if your dog's important to you, what kind of stuff can show up inside that gets in the way of you showing love and affection towards your dog?
Sometimes the thought of, I'm too busy.
I'm too busy. Okay.
Right.
And so when this feeling of too busy comes up, what do you do to move away? Or how do you react to that feeling?
I do all sorts of stuff. Sometimes I might kind of buy into that thought and then just keep working, not take my dog out right away for a walk, even though I see him looking at me with that please walk me now look.
Oh, good. And when you look at your dog with the dog saying, please walk me now, I need to go out, but you say, I'm too busy, and you keep working, and that's what you do. We can see you do, which is in the upper left quadrant, right?
Yeah, that's my way to kind of deal with that, get rid of that thought of I'm too busy. Maybe if I just work longer, I'm not going to have that thought there anymore.
Right. So, but does your dog get walked?
No, he doesn't get walked. At least not in that moment.
Not in that moment. And so when your dog doesn't get walked, what does your dog do?
Well, he's 15 and a half, so sometimes it results in me cleaning up a puddle on the floor.
Oh, and how does that make you feel?
Oh, well, then I feel more stressed than I did even before.
So you're back down to the lower left-hand stress. So it's a cycle of I'm too busy and all this stuff happens and the dog makes a mess and it just gets worse, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. So what could you do instead to move toward, if you were to look at the top right-hand corner?
Well, if I were to move toward connecting to my dog, who's very important to me, I would take him out for a walk.
Right.
Or these days, more of like a sniff.
A sniff. Right. Or even just let your dog get some relief, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how would that work?
Well, I wouldn't have to clean up the puddle often, and then I would feel more connected to my dog. I feel like, okay. And I get a break too from work or whatever else, chores.
Yeah. And would your dog be happier too, maybe?
Oh, yes. We'd both be happier.
Right. So notice. So we're noticing what the impact of our actions and our decisions are when we have these yucky inside feelings show up. And we notice how sometimes when we have these yucky inside feelings and we react to them, that they may not be that workable. They may not lead to what's important. And in fact, in that case, if you'd taken your dog out, you probably would have gotten rid of your stress. You may have been able to make the dog happier, and you also may be able to be more productive with your work.
Yeah. Now, in the reality, that stress is still there, the work is still there, but it's there whether I take my dog out for a walk or I stay, frantically trying to do stuff on my computer.
That's right. It doesn't go away, but there's one less thing to stress over.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's what we call noticing. And what we're doing with the matrix is we're taking this noticing perspective. We're sitting on the ledge, looking from on high, and looking down on what we did and determining whether that was workable or not workable, and then deciding what we're going to do next based on doing things that are workable, right?
Yeah, it's definitely taking that broader perspective.
Yeah.
Getting me out of the tunnel vision of, I need to do this one thing.
Right. Which is what the lady on the ledge is doing, just looking out onto the landscape. And that could be the landscape of your life, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And so we get to this. Viktor Frankl, he wrote this, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. And that's a very ACT matrix statement. Because if you know anything about Viktor Frankl, he was a psychiatrist who was actually in a concentration camp. And he noticed a lot of people dying. His family died. And he wanted to know why some people were actually able to thrive in these terrible circumstances, or at least get by, and some people perished and went away and died. And it's all because despite the very terrible circumstances, some people could still decide to give relief to people. They could save some of their bread, although they were hungry, to feed it to someone who was hungry. They could still decide to notice a sunny day, or they could still decide to notice that there's a bird singing. And these are all things that they could notice that nobody could take away from them. That power of noticing and choosing what they notice is where their freedom and growth occurred. Just like when you look at your dog situation and you look at it from the matrix perspective, you look at, you have some power. You can choose to maybe move toward your dog and not just react to the I'm busy feeling.
Yes.
Right. And that's where our growth and freedom lies, in our power to choose how we respond at any moment. Okay.
So what Ron and I have put together for you folks are 5 steps for achieving this resilience within your context, whether it be as a leader within your workplace or professional, working a busy life, or even within your home and personal life. How can you achieve this sort of resilience with using the matrix and sorting? And so you've been introduced now to the matrix. So let's work through, what are these 5 steps? Well, the first step is what Ron just led me through there, and that is, who is important? And so all you folks on the webinar right now, maybe take a moment and type into chat, or for those of you watching the recording, take a moment and reflect on who is important to you in your life. Who do you want to impact at work, perhaps? What is your shared purpose at work? That's step number 1.
So, Julie, if we have a shared purpose.
Say that again, Ron?
I think we have a shared purpose.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to get through this presentation.
Absolutely. We want to get through it. We want to hopefully give some helpful tips to folks to be more resilient in their lives.
Right. We want to help folks make those choices that are going to move them toward who's important, which is really what resilience is all about.
Absolutely. So we don't get to choose the second side of the matrix, the bottom left quadrant, number 2, the inside your skin stuff, but we do get to choose the noticing of it. So we can notice what yucky stuff shows up and gets in the way of connecting to who or what's important to you, whether it be at work or elsewhere in your life. Where we then get to have more choice, which that Viktor Frankl quotation really illustrates well, is what we do in response. So is it going to be a relief-seeking action? So number 3, or is it going to be a proactive satisfaction-seeking action? So is it going to be, continuing to work really long hours, which maybe is helpful sometimes, but maybe not so helpful other times, in being the resilient leader that lies within you? Or are you going to, take breaks, pace yourself, do other things that maybe are more workable in the long term, that lead to a more satisfying and resilient work and life? And that step 5 is the noticing of the workability. So you might have noticed by now that Ron and I aren't talking about good or bad or right or wrong in terms of these different actions, whether it's a top right or a top left action. So sometimes relief seeking might be really helpful, might serve you well. Other times it might be more helpful to take a move toward, which is the top right quadrant. So let's maybe take a moment to go through these steps. So step 1 is having that end goal in mind. So that's why we started there. Who do you want to impact? And what is the shared purpose? So we already went through that. That's really important to start there. Otherwise, it's like driving without a map, or taking a hike without a compass or an idea of where you're going on the trail.
Yeah. It's really hard for a leader to lead if they don't know where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's why they need to know what the end goal is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then step 2 is to notice what passengers, so we use this metaphor of passengers on the bus. So what sticky or yucky stuff shows up in your mind? So feelings of stress, or thoughts of I'm too busy, or anxiety, or all sorts of other thoughts and feelings and stuff. What passengers show up in your mind that get in the way of connecting to who and what's important in your work or in your life? What number 1 thing shows up for you that gets in the way of being a resilient leader in your work, Ron?
I think the big thing that shows up is this sort of imposter fear thing, right? Where I always wonder if I'm good enough, and I always second guess myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes, that's a
really popular one.
Yeah. And when I listen to that one, I notice that instead of stepping up and talking about things that matter, I don't. I noticed that because I'm a lawyer, I start using a lot of legalese just to hide behind the fact that I'm not really sure if I'm doing or saying something that's worthwhile or valuable.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Lots of big words.
That's the big words.
As a psychologist, I can appreciate that and certainly relate to that too, Ron.
Yeah. So, yeah. And that doesn't help, because big words just get you all tied up.
Yeah. It strikes me that it doesn't help us connect more to the people that we're wanting to make a difference.
No, I find big words are the biggest fence you can build, right? It's going to be bigger than Trump's wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so step 3. Do you want to take this one away, Ron?
Sure. So basically it's what I was talking about is these away moves, right? And when we're doing them to avoid connecting or avoid leading. So I've noticed that one big thing a lot of lawyers do is to procrastinate, right? And we always think that people who procrastinate are kind of lazy or don't want to do their work. Well, the truth of the matter is that procrastination takes a lot of effort, because you need, you have to do it, but you avoid to do it. And you avoid to do it sometimes because maybe the client's calling you, you don't know the answer, or maybe you really did a big boo-boo and you don't want to admit it. So what you do, like the ostrich, is you're working really hard to try to put your head in the sand and trying to say, well, I'm too busy to call today, I've got something else to do, or I'm too much of this, or, I've got other things I have to attend to, or this thing really isn't that important. So the more you do that, though, the more this noise of the, make the call, the louder it gets. It's like one of those passengers, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to be resilient,
the phone calls, you're not making the phone call, you're not picking up the phone call, you're not maybe working on that file you need to work on, or talking to that colleague or person, dodging.
And what I really hate is on my phone, I have a red light that tells me I have a message, and it flashes. And it just keeps flashing every time I look at it, and it drives me crazy. Right? But that's not helpful. Those are the types of things we want to try to minimize, because they just make things worse.
Well, how do they make things worse? Like, what do you notice then, Ron, when you're dodging phone calls and doing those things that you know are important? What do you notice showing up inside your mind?
Well, it never goes away. It just keeps playing on my mind. Even when I'm trying, for instance, I could be home and I could be doing a family thing on a Saturday night, and I see the flashing light. It's just there. My mind won't let it go. It's, this whole notion that you can't control your thoughts. Or this is another exercise that we do with ACT is we tell somebody, we talk about pink elephants, right? And we say, for the next minute, don't think about pink elephants. And if you think about pink elephants, your life will come to an end. So don't ever think about pink elephants or you'll die for the next minute. And you try to tell them, so what are you thinking about, right?
How's that not thinking about pink elephants doing?
Right.
Yeah. That's then obviously what's in your mind, pink elephants.
The pink elephants are there and you can't get rid of them.
Yeah.
And you're going to die. That's the next thing you think, right?
And so what can we do about this? Let's, maybe move to, we all have these, what some of us refer to as monkey minds, these minds that we don't shut off. And the point isn't to shut them off, but rather, what can we do when this yucky stuff shows up of stress and anxiety and thoughts of I'm an imposter, to live, these resilient lives and be the resilient leaders that we want to be.
Yeah, so that's why we talk about this being proactive and moving toward and choosing our thing. Noticing that what we're doing isn't effective. So the more I do this avoidance thing, even though I might suck at something, and even though I might be really bad and I might make things, not achieve the result I want, once I do that crappy thing or I answer that terrible phone call, it's done. It's over, right? The only way to make it over or to make it done is to do it. And, sure, I might not do it the best way, or I might not be the most competent person, but once it's done, and that's relief. It's not this ear, this buzzing in your brain that keeps going on and on and on.
And a big part of the doing too is not just about making that stop, but about if this action of responding to a client or a colleague is important, then it can move the agenda in a bigger way in terms of your work life or your life overall.
Yeah, you do get relief. And that's what you start to notice. Even if you start doing little things, it's amazing how that works.
So it's all in the doing.
It's all in the doing and choosing.
Yeah. And so you mentioned whether I forget what you just said there in terms of workability, but it's noticing how effective something is. So we can do all sorts of different actions in any given moment. And what's important is not whether it's a good or bad thing or a right or wrong thing, but is it helpful in the context? So are actions always contextual? So it might serve us well in one situation and not serve us well in another situation. So let's take, for instance, can you think of something, Ron, that you do sometimes that, even answering a phone call? Are there times when that would be actually a move toward ignoring that flashing light? Not recorded.
Oh, there are lots of times it's toward. Yes, I get specific instruction to not answer calls from clients, right?
Sure.
On certain matters and dealing with certain people. So not answering the call is a big toward move. Also, sometimes when you're negotiating with somebody, for example, let's say they're desperate, you want to increase their desperateness well, that's a terrible thing to do, but yeah, it's a toward move sometimes when you're holding all the marbles, right?
So there are probably very few behaviors or actions that would always be in every context a move toward, or how we framed it here, a proactive action. And there are very few that would always be, just for avoidance sake. Sometimes not doing something can actually be quite workable and even help us thrive as leaders. And so it's very important, and we encourage, the takeaway message from today would be, to recognize when to persist and when it might be helpful to take a different approach. Yeah. So really to not get caught up in a rigid one-size-fits-all approach.
I want to say one thing about, if we go back to the other slide a second, I just thought of a good reason why you would not want to do something, especially as a leader. And sometimes there can be, when you're leading some people on a team, they may have conflicts and they may need to work it out. So sometimes not stepping in and not telling people what to do is actually a toward move if the people are talking to each other. Because sometimes as leaders, you can micromanage. And when you micromanage, that's bad. You actually demotivate the people who work with you. Yeah, so that's just one thing. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's a great example. And even just taking that a step further and in trying to do it all, or being overly responsible for all the team or your work environments. You're just because you're the leader in a certain respect doesn't mean that it's all on you. You need to really use the resources that your team has.
This reminds me of something Warren Buffett said. He said this: the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything.
Yes, I remember those words, wise words.
Yeah.
No's a hard one, though, to say. And that's a whole other webinar.
That's a whole other webinar.
All the different ways we can say no.
Okay, I got that one down, though.
For now, what we encourage folks to do is to, practice.
Yeah. So here's a trick about the matrix, and I'll share it with you. It's not about trying to be perfect in every situation, because we want you to understand you're all very human. So that means you're going to make mistakes. I don't know anyone who doesn't make mistakes. The aim of the matrix, like any good, is to take a look overall and at the actions you do over a week and see whether you're making an improvement. Are you doing things that are more workable? Has the percentage of workability gone up, right? So it's like this noticing, and you notice every time you notice, give yourself a star. And if at the end of the day you go to bed and you thought, oh, I didn't notice, well, give yourself a star. You just noticed again. That's the trick to success. It's not about being perfect.
Great tip. And so we hope everyone enjoyed and has something that they're taking away to become more the resilient leader, so you can really maximize the fun and enjoyment in your lives. These slides are available on my website. I believe Ron's going to post some on his too if he hasn't already. So you can visit either our websites, which are on this final slide here. So drjuliebolac.com or Ron's website's there.
Yes, it's under, and you can find it on the website on the blog page, I would think. We're going to post that. We haven't done it yet, but we will. Or I will, or somebody will.
Yeah, and mine are posted right now. If you enter your email address where you'd like them sent, they're posted on the front page, the home page, and also under resources. And if you have any questions for either of us, or you're interested in this topic and would like us to come and speak to your team about this, feel free to reach out and contact us. We always love to hear from you.
Great. Well, good job, Julie.
Thanks. You also are on. This is fun. And we have more webinars in this leadership series planned, so stay tuned. We'll keep you informed.
Okay. So that's one thing I didn't learn is how to sign off.
I think
Well, you don't have to worry about it.
Oh, okay.
Behind the scenes there.
I have the red button that signs us off. So
Okay.
we will sign off and be back for that great, what was it? Saying No webinar.
Oh, saying no. Okay, I'm up for that one.
That would be a really good webinar. So,
see, my mother's Italian, and so she taught me how to say no because I heard a lot.
Okay.
Okay.
And everybody's saying thanks. Okay, so we'll sign off. Bye-bye now.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.